There is a security logo on most sites that verifies it as being a secure site. Make sure that it's a legitimate organization that you're dealing with. Obviously, any major retailer or any large site like Amazon.com and eBay and such, their sites are going to be secure and safe in most cases. It's also important for consumers to know that when it comes to credit card information, your card issuing financial institution will stand behind those risks. And in all likelihood, you're never going to get hit with any financial loss. The real issue with identity theft is you get hit with the inconvenience of things that can happen. And by the way, another thing that consumers ought to do is check their credit report periodically.
Oh, yes.
That's one of the real important things that they can do.
And you can get that credit report free, is that correct?
Right. There are lots of places online where you can get a free credit report. Check your credit report periodically. You'll be able to see if things are showing up with things that you're not responsible for, and then you can contact your financial institution and get that nipped in the bud early.
So what if you check your credit report and you see all these credit cards that are on there that you didn't apply for?
Right.
What do you do next? What kinds of
Well, if you see
action?
that there were purchases made and things that were not from your activity, then you need to contact your financial institution, let them know that there's been a security breach, and then they'll reissue your credit card, and they'll help you. Every credit card issuing company has a fraud department. They'll investigate those things and get them taken care of. And again, the financial institution takes the responsibility for those risks. If it weren't for that, none of us as consumers would feel very safe about even using those plastic cards.
Right.
So we are safeguarded by the fact that the financial institution that issues the credit card will stand behind us in terms of protecting us.
Okay. Now, what are some of the other issues you mentioned? There's identity theft, and what were the other ones?
Well, predatory lending is a huge issue right now, and it has direct bearing on the foreclosure activity that we're seeing in this country. Foreclosures are up tremendously right now. In fact, 5 states that include Michigan account for over half of all of the foreclosure activity that we're seeing in this country. Michigan, Ohio, Georgia, California, and Florida. And Michigan ranks 3rd. We've had this huge spike in foreclosure activity, in part, not completely, but in part because people have been taken advantage of by mortgage lenders who have encouraged them to get into mortgage loans that have variable rate features, that reprice quickly, that have prepayment penalties. And so as interest rates have moved up, people are in mortgages they can't afford, and on and on. And so we have a lot of folks losing their homes right now, and there are some things that people can do to protect themselves.
And you want to talk maybe about some of those items?
Yeah, just a couple. I mean, the first is education, education, education. You know, take your time when you're buying a home and getting into a mortgage to make sure that you're dealing with a lender, and we take great pride in the fact that credit unions do this, dealing with a lender that lends responsibly and will help you understand what type of mortgage you can afford. Because if you're taking out an exotic mortgage that is an interest-only mortgage, or a mortgage that is going to reprice quickly when rates go up, you need to be sure that you're going to be able to afford that mortgage loan payment when it reprices. And so the first thing is to educate yourself and be careful on the front end. The second thing is, if you're experiencing any difficulty in making your payments, contact your financial institution, and oftentimes, I know in the case of credit unions, they'll work with you to restructure your debt and help you avoid losing your home.
Okay. Were there other issues like that, or did we touch on
you
all
mentioned
of them?
identity theft and predatory lending. I mean, I think right now the key thing is that people have to be on guard to avoid scam artists, and they need to take more responsibility for educating themselves. There is a wide array of things that we could talk about in terms of, you know, managing our finances smartly.
Well, I want to go back to the financial literacy issue. What are some special considerations that one should give when kind of trying to plan for different events in your life?
Well, that's a great question, and you know, it's different at every stage of our lives. Those of us who have children, who have raised children, know that it's different when we have young people versus teens versus young adults versus when we're adults versus when we're planning for retirement or have just retired. There are different issues at every stage. But again, if you look at different categories, the earning issues, the spending, the savings, the borrowing, there's something in every one of those categories. But let me just touch on a couple. First of all, obviously, when you look at your life stages, there isn't any replacement for getting a good education and getting a good job, because anything else we want to talk about everything else is made easier if we can do that. So education, invest in education is a really key thing. Wise spending habits, obviously, and then saving. We talked earlier about save. As simple as it sounds, you know, making a commitment to save 5% of our income every month is just a key thing. Easily a third of the population who have access to a 401k plan choose to not participate in that, and that's a real shame. So there are all kinds of things, but I think it's having the discipline to educate yourself and then making a commitment to do some wise things to take control of your finances.
Mm-hmm. And so when you're looking at college and you're looking at those bills, you know, $40,000 to get a degree, that's a wise investment.
Right.
Is that what you would promote?
Absolutely,
that?
and it's staggering when you look at that. There are scholarships available. There are good student loan programs available. Mm-hmm. But you know, everyone should do. Obviously, young people should do everything they can, and their parents everything that they can do to help them to invest in education, because there just is no better preventive measure than to get a good education so that you can get a good job. Then everything else kind of falls in place much easier. Mm-hmm. But you know, in addition to that, there are things like participate in your 401k plan. Take advantage of an IRA if you can do that. Have a savings plan. You know, establish good habits for wise spending. The good news is that there's a huge array of resources online mm-hmm. that give smart savings tips and smart financial management tips. So it's lots of information is available. We just have to take advantage of it.
Okay, sort of like a diet.
It is a lot like the physical fitness, where we know, you know, there's all kinds of new diets and new fitness plans that come out. The reality is it's pretty simple. Mm-hmm. We just have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Now, different stages of one's life. You know, let's say you get married. Are there any particular things that you should do at that stage?
My oldest child is married and is in her second home. Mm-hmm. I have 3 lovely grandkids, and as I look at them, you know, I realize that they're going through a lot of the same things that we've all had to go through as adults. And the biggest thing I would say to young people getting started is don't get in over your heads in terms of borrowing, and that starts with your home purchase. Try to get by with less in terms of the size of home that mm-hmm. you have. Don't kid yourself into thinking that you can stretch the limits, especially with a variable rate mortgage, because you don't know what things are going to come along. And certainly credit card debt, avoid that at all costs mm-hmm. in those early stages of your marriage.
Mm-hmm. Any tips for if you have a child, you know, birth of a child, what to do and those kind of life experience changes?
Well, again, when the children come along, I think one of the most challenging issues that surfaces is often, in fact in most cases, you have a 2-wage earner household, and you have that very tough decision of what do you do with child care. Does one spouse stay home to raise the child or mm-hmm. not? Does one have to put their career on hold, his or her career on hold, and so on? And I think those issues, again, come down to making sure that you don't overextend yourself in terms of your mm-hmm. home, the size of your home, and the other toys and amenities that you choose to have. Manage your money wisely. Don't get in over your head on credit card debt, so that you can have the flexibility to spend the time with that child and give the child what they need. And what children need more than anything is your time, obviously.
Mm-hmm. What if you have a new job? You're moving from one occupation to another. Any tips there?
Well, I think the first thing is don't underestimate the costs of moving. I've moved twice interstate in my career, and I can say that it's very easy to underestimate all the costs. You can look at cost of living differences, and you can look at the difference in your wages and so on, but there are huge additional